Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are going to do something a little different.
A bit of a change of pace.
Yeah, exactly. Usually we take a big, sprawling topic like the history of a war or the mechanics of a new technology, and we try to, compress it. We try to make it fit into a box.
Right. We usually go wide, broad strokes.
Exactly. But today we are going strictly microscopic. We are zooming in on a single moment in time. A snapshot, really.
It's just one frame.
One photograph taken on a cold Saturday in Berlin, February 7th, 2026.
It's fascinating how much history and psychology can be packed into one image, isn't it? Just one single captured moment.
It is. And as we're going to find out, this isn't just a picture of a crowd. It isn't just some news update you scroll past.
No.
It's a picture that seemingly cracked open a massive psychological fault line in Iranian politics. It exposed things that usually stay hidden way under the surface.
It really is a perfect case study in how a single image can act as a mirror, a sort of Rorschach test for a political movement.
A mirror? How do you mean?
I mean, it reveals as much about the people looking at the photo and, commenting on it as it does about the people in the photo. Maybe even more.
Okay, so let's set the scene before we get into the heavy psychoanalysis. We need to transport you, the listener, to Berlin.
It's February 2026. And it's cold.
Not just a little chilly, it's that biting European winter cold, the kind that gets in your bones.
Right, so you have the setting, and then you have the event itself.
And we are looking at a massive gathering. I mean, tens of thousands of Iranians have flooded the streets. This isn't a small protest, this is a sea of people.
And the context here is everything. They are there supporting the National Council of Resistance of Iran, the NCRI.
So this is a very specific political gathering. It has a clear purpose.
A very clear purpose.
Yeah.
Specifically, they are rallying around the 10-point plan put forward by Maryam Ravi. It's her vision for a future democratic republic in Iran.
So we're talking about a highly organized, highly charged political environment.
Absolutely. You can just imagine the scene. The noise, the flags, the chanting. It's this huge, chaotic sea of humanity.
But amidst all that chaos, a photographer captures a specific group, a kind of quiet pocket in the storm.
And this is the crucial detail. These aren't just random attendees who hopped on a train to Berlin for the day. No. These are faces that, for a certain generation of Iranians, are instantly recognizable. These are former sporting heroes. Champions.
Really?
Oh, yeah. People who, in previous decades, were the absolute icons of Iranian national pride.
When you say champions, are we talking like local league or are we talking big time?
We're talking the people who would have been on the Wheaties boxes, so to speak, if Iran had Wheaties boxes.
Yeah.
We are talking about national team members, famous footballers, world champion wrestlers, the people whose names were once synonymous with gold medals, with discipline, with collective hope.
The people who represented the ideal, the peak physical specimen.
Precisely. They represented the peak of what an Iranian could be, at least in a physical sense.
Yeah.
Strong, victorious, capable. But, and here's the hook, the thing that makes the photo so powerful. In this picture, they look different.
How so? I mean, of course they're older.
Well, yes. Time has passed. They are clearly older. They aren't in athletic gear. They're bundled up in heavy winter coats. They have gray hair. Some of them, look a little frail.
And they're holding something.
They are. And this is so important. They're holding pictures of martyrs, people who lost their lives in the struggle for freedom against the current regime.
So you have this incredibly poignant image, these aging lions, former national symbols standing out in the freezing cold, making a very quiet, very dignified political stand.
It's a powerful statement just on its own.
You'd think the reaction would be at the very least respectful.
Right.
I mean, even if you hate their politics, you have to respect the history. You have to respect what they once represented.
You would think. Logic
Yeah.
would absolutely dictate that. But that is not what happened. Not even close. And this is where our deep dive really begins. When this photo hit social media, it didn't just get likes or shares or some healthy debate. It triggered an avalanche.
An avalanche of what?
Of vitriol.
Yeah.
A specific targeted wave of insults and really derogatory comments. And what's crucial here, according to our source for today, is who was doing the attacking and how they were doing it.
Oh, so who was it?
The attacks were coming from accounts identifying as supporters of Reza Pahlavi, the son of the deposed Shah, the monarchists.
Okay, the other major opposition faction.
Correct. But we need to be nuanced here because our source, the psychologist Araj Abedini, He notes something really important in his analysis.
What's that?
He alleges that within that group of Pahlavi supporters, there's a significant amount of influence, and perhaps even direct control, by the current clerical regime in Iran.
Wait, so the regime is pretending to be monarchist to attack another opposition group?
It's the classic divide and conquer strategy. The idea is that the regime stirs the pot online to sow as much discord and hatred as possible between the opposition groups, to make them fight each other instead of focusing on the real enemy.
That makes a terrifying amount of sense.
It does. But Abedini's point is that regardless of who is ultimately pulling the strings, whether it's genuine monarchist sentiment or regime puppetry, the behavior of these accounts was, well, it was vicious. And it was very, very specific.
And that specificity is what brings us to the core of today's deep dive.
Exactly.
We aren't just scrolling through mean tweets here. We aren't just reporting on some internet drama. We are looking at a very specific and very detailed psychological analysis by Iraj Abedini.
Right. He took a look at this backlash, this wave of slime aimed at these elderly athletes, and he didn't see just trolling. He saw a symptom of something much deeper.
He saw a diagnosis.
That's the perfect word for it, a diagnosis. Yep. Abedini's argument, which we're going to unpack, is that these online attacks reveal a deep-seated authoritarian and fascist mindset.
That's a strong charge. Fascist.
It is. And he argues that the way these Pahlavi supporters attack these athletes mirrors the exact kind of tyranny seen under the civic, the Shah's brutal secret police, and, for that matter, under the current mullahs.
So that's a heavy claim. He's basically saying, you claim to oppose the regime, but your brain works exactly like theirs. You use the same tools.
Exactly. It's a theory he presents about the continuity of tyranny. The idea that the software of oppression remains the same, even if the hardware or the crown or the turban changes.
Okay. And just to be absolutely clear for you listening, our mission today is to unpack Abedini's analysis. We are reporting on his psychological and sociological breakdown of this event.
It's very important to state that. We aren't taking sides in the political factionalism between the NCRI and the monarchists. Our goal is to explore this concept of the authoritarian personality that Abedini describes, using this photograph as a case study.
Right. It's a lens through which to understand a much bigger phenomenon. So let's start with the image itself. Section 1 of this deep dive, decoding the image. Abedini says, this is more than just a photo. Why? What does he see that I might miss just scrolling by?
Well, to really get it, you have to understand the transformation of the subjects in the photo. Think about what a sports hero represents in a culture.
Strength, youth, victory, national pride.
Yes, all of that. But traditionally, they represent the peak of the physical body. It's a very performative kind of glory.
Right. You win the medal, you stand on the podium, the anthem plays. It's about you. It's about what your body can do.
It's largely individual glory, exactly. Even in team sports, the narrative is about physical dominance. But Abedini points out a profound transformation here. In this photo in Berlin, these athletes have moved from that performative sporting glory to what he calls civic and moral action.
That's a huge shift.
It's a massive shift. They aren't using their bodies to lift weights or score goals anymore. They can't. They're older. Instead, they are using their physical presence, their mere existence in that specific time and place, to stand for a set of values.
Values like what?
Truth, freedom, and human solidarity. He argues that their simple act of standing there is a political statement.
It's a shift from look at what I can do to look at what I stand for.
Beautifully put. That's exactly it. And Abedini really emphasizes the symbolism of just standing. He calls it them taking on a historical responsibility. By showing up with their aging bodies, their wrinkles, their gray hair, they are lending their symbolic capital to a cause.
Hold on, let's unpack symbolic capital. That sounds like a key term we should define.
It is. It's a sociological concept, but it's pretty simple to grasp. Think of symbolic capital like a bank account of reputation and goodwill. Every time these men won a match, back in the 70s or 80s, they made a deposit into that account. Every time they made the nation proud, they made another deposit. Over decades, they built up this massive fortune of public respect and admiration. They're icons.
Right. And usually people with that much capital, they hoard it. They retire. They open a restaurant. They become a beloved, non-controversial figure. They don't spend it.
Exactly. Because spending it is risky. The moment you take a strong political stance, you risk alienating half your fans. You risk tarnishing that perfect golden legacy.
But these men decided to cash in their chips.
That's what Abedini argues. They decided to spend their capital. They are, in effect, burning their own hard-won reputation to buy attention for the resistance movement. It's a selfless act, in his view.
And specifically, Abedini argues this stance represents a double rejection. What does he mean by that?
This is absolutely critical for understanding the political context and why they became such a target. By standing there, under the banner of a democratic republic and the NCRI, they are simultaneously rejecting two forms of dictatorship. They are rejecting the Shah, the monarchy of the past, and the Sheikh, the clerical rule of the present.
So it's a no to the past and a no to the present.
Correct. They are saying no to the dictatorship of the Pahlavi era and no to the dictatorship of the mullahs. They're trying to carve out a third path, one that isn't about looking backward to a king or staying stuck with the current theocracy.
And that's a powerful nuance, because usually people get trapped in binaries. If you are against the mullahs, you must be for the Shah, or vice versa.
But these athletes are disrupting that binary.
And that disruption is dangerous to the people who rely on that binary.
Disruption is exactly the right word. And that disruption is precisely why they became targets. But before we get to the attacks, let's look again at that visual detail you mentioned, the martyr photos.
Yeah, the framed pictures they were holding, you said they were pictures of those who were killed.
Yes. And Abedini sees this as a profound symbolic bridge in his analysis. He says that by holding those photos, they are connecting the standing to the fallen.
The living to the dead.
It links the athletes who are still alive, still breathing, still fighting in their own way, to those who sacrificed everything, who paid the ultimate price.
It's like they are saying, we are standing here on their behalf. We carry their memory.
Exactly. It's like they are channeling the dead. And in doing so, it turns heroism from something fleeting, like a sports record that can be broken next season, into something eternal. He has this line, he says, heroism is incomplete if it doesn't connect to collective memory and moral responsibility.
That gives me goosebumps a little bit. It's like they're saying, my gold medal doesn't matter as much as this person's life.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It recontextualizes their entire lives. It anchors their fame in something much deeper and more meaningful than sports.
Yeah.
It creates a very high moral ground, a very dignified position.
And it is against that dignity that the backlash crashed.
Like a wave against a rock.
Okay, let's get into the ugly stuff then. Section 2, the anatomy of the attack. So, the photo goes up, the athletes are standing there looking dignified, holding these photos of martyrs. What happens in the comments section?
It turns ugly. And it turns ugly fast. And Abedini is very specific in his analysis about categorizing these insults because he believes the type of insult is incredibly revealing.
So it wasn't a political debate?
Oh, not at all. The attackers, these supporters of the monarchy or authority, as Abedini calls them, they didn't attack the 10-point plan. They didn't write essays about why a republic is a bad idea for Iran.
So no policy debate. No, I respectfully disagree with Article 5 of this plan because...
None. Zero. It was a complete absence of intellectual engagement. Instead, they went straight for the jugular. They attacked the biology of the athletes.
Their biology? What do you mean by that?
Yes, their physical bodies. Abedini makes a list of the recurring insults. First, they mocked their age. They used terms emphasizing elderliness as if it were a shameful disease.
Like it's a moral failure to get old.
Exactly. Then, they mocked their physical appearance, specifically their teeth, their scarves, their bodies. They zoomed in on any perceived physical imperfection. And then there were all the references to nursing homes.
Wow. Go back to the nursing home. That's incredibly low.
It's incredibly low. But it's also, from a psychological perspective, very revealing. Why attack the teeth? Why attack the wrinkles?
I don't know. Why?
Because it's an attack on decay. It's an attack on mortality. It's a desperate attempt to say, you are no longer the physical gods you used to be, therefore nothing you say matters.
You're irrelevant because your body is failing.
Precisely. And then there was the most specific and perhaps the most bizarre recurring accusation.
It was.
That they were only there for free food.
Free food? These are world-famous athletes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not just any food. The insult was very specific. Watery soup, or sometimes free lunch or free dinner.
Watery soup? That is oddly specific. Why watery?
It implies poverty. It implies desperation. It implies that these men, these national heroes, are so pathetic, so broken, that their principles can be bought for a bowl of bad soup.
That's a profound level of disrespect.
It is. And we'll get to the psychology of the soup comment in a bit, because Abedini thinks that's a massive tell. But first, let's just look at the overall tone. Abedini argues This isn't criticism. It's not political dialogue. He even argues it isn't satire.
Yeah, I feel like people hide behind, it's just a joke, a lot, don't be so sensitive, it's satire. But this feels different.
It's completely different. Satire usually punches up. It mocks power. It mocks the king on his throne or the Ayatollah in his palace.
Right, it speaks truth to power.
This is punching down. It's punching out at the biology of an elderly person standing in the cold for their beliefs. Abedini has a specific term for it. He calls it dehumanization.
Dehumanization.
The goal isn't to win an argument. It's to strip the human status away from the subject, to reduce a national hero to just a decaying body or a soup eater. Once you've done that, you don't have to engage with their ideas at all.
And this leads us right to the heavy hitter section 3, the psychological diagnosis. Abedini calls this an eliminationist worldview. That sounds, frankly, it sounds dark. It sounds like something from 1930s Europe. What does that mean in this context?
This is where we get into the core of his diagnosis of the fascist mindset. Abedini's central thesis is that authoritarian systems, and the people who are drawn to them, have a very, very limited definition of what a valuable human is.
They sort the world into categories of people.
Exactly. They view the world like a garden that needs to be constantly weeded. There are flowers and there are weeds.
Okay, so who counts as human in their world? Who is the flower and who is the weed?
The ideal subject is the flower. In a fascist or authoritarian worldview, a human is only valuable if they are young, strong, obedient, and completely compliant with the leader's image.
Think of the propaganda posters.
Exactly. Think of the propaganda from the Shah's era, or the current regime, or from any totalitarian state like North Korea. Everyone is always muscular, young, vibrant, and staring adoringly at the leader.
Right. No wrinkles, no dissent, no weakness. It's an illusion of perfection.
It's total perfection. So anyone who steps outside that perfect frame, anyone who is elderly, anyone who is physically imperfect, anyone who has an independent thought, anyone who is a dissident, they become the other. They become the weed.
And the weed must be pulled.
It must be eliminated. And for the loyal follower of the authoritarian leader, the very existence of this other causes a deep, profound anxiety.
Anxiety? Why anxiety? You'd think they'd just ignore them if they think they are so superior.
Because the other represents a flaw in their perfect ordered world. It represents reality.
And reality is messy.
Reality is decay, aging, independent thought, and these things are terrifying to a mind that craves total order and absolute submission to a single leader. If the hero of my childhood is now grown old and stands against the king I worship, that creates a crack in my reality.
It creates cognitive dissonance.
A massive dissonance. It's a conflict that the brain can't easily resolve. So to quell that anxiety, they must humiliate the other. They have to attack and destroy their dignity. They have to prove to themselves and to their peers that this person doesn't count.
So the insult isn't just an insult. It's a defense mechanism. It's a psychological tool.
It's a frantic, desperate way to eliminate the threat. If I can convince myself and my online followers that you are just a toothless, old soup eater, then I don't have to deal with the moral challenge you are presenting to me. I don't have to listen to your ideas about democracy or human rights.
I've eliminated you socially and morally, so I don't have to fight you politically.
You've already won in your own mind. And this is where Abedini makes that chilling connection between the Pahlavi supporters and the civic and the mullahs.
The continuity of tyranny.
The continuity of tyranny.
Explain that link, because civic was a secret police force that tortured and killed people. These are just people on Twitter making crude jokes.
On the surface, the scale is different. But Abedini argues the underlying logic is identical. He says whether the oppressor wears a crown, which is the page of the Shah, or a turban, the imameh of the Sheikh, the software running in their brain is the same.
And what is that software?
It's the logic of, submit to the leader or we will crush your dignity. It's the belief that humiliation is a legitimate political tool.
That is fascinating. It's like the uniform changes, but the behavior, the humiliation tactic, stays exactly the same across generations and ideologies.
And that's why Abedini brings up the civic mentality so pointedly. The Shah's secret police weren't just about killing people. A huge part of their method was about humiliation, breaking the spirit, forcing false confessions, making people feel small, worthless, and alone.
Destroying them from the inside out?
Yes. And seeing these online attackers use those same tactics, attacking the body, mocking the age, stripping the dignity away, it suggests to him that they haven't learned a single thing from Iran's painful history.
They just want their turn at the whip.
That's the chilling conclusion he draws. They aren't fighting for freedom from tyranny. They are fighting for the right to be the next tyrants.
Okay, let's circle back to the soup. Section 4. Projective psychology. I'm really stuck on this. It's so strange. Why accuse former national champions, people who probably have plenty of pride, maybe even their own money, of standing in the freezing cold for a bowl of watery soup?
This is one of the most insightful parts of Abedini's analysis, I think. He identifies this as a classic case of psychological projection.
Okay, break that down for us. I know projection is a therapy term, but how does it apply to a political attack online?
Well, projection, at its simplest, is when you take something that's true about yourself, a feeling, a motivation, a worldview that you maybe don't want to admit to, and you attribute it to someone else. You project it onto them like a movie.
So you're saying the attackers are the ones who are actually motivated by...
By transactions. Abedini argues that the attackers, these monarchists and supporters of authority, operate on a purely transactional mindset.
Transactional, meaning I do this, I get that, quid pro quo.
Exactly. They view the world entirely through the lens of rents, economic privileges, rewards, and bribes. In their worldview, nobody does anything for free. Nothing is done out of pure principle.
So you follow the leader because the leader gives you protection or status. You show up to a rally because you get a sandwich and a t-shirt. You tweet in support of the cause because you hope to get a government job later.
That's their operating system. Everything is a transaction. So when they see these athletes standing in Berlin,
their brains can't process it.
Their brains literally cannot compute voluntarism. Abedini argues they possess a cognitive inability to understand voluntary moral action.
It's a genuine blind spot.
It's a total blindness.
Yeah.
They look at that photograph of old men standing in the bitter cold, and their brain immediately asks the transactional question, why are they there? It's freezing. It looks miserable. Why would they do that? There must be a payoff. Where is the money? Where's the food?
Because the idea that someone would stand in the cold just for freedom, just for a principle, that doesn't compute in their operating system. It's like a file their computer can't open.
It doesn't. And what's more, it actually threatens their worldview.
How so?
Because if true moral courage exists, if people really do things just because they believe it's the right thing to do, then their own transactional loyalty suddenly looks cheap by comparison. It looks selfish.
It makes them look small.
It makes them look very small. So to protect their own ego, to resolve that cognitive dissonance we talked about, they must reduce the athlete's motivation to something base. Something pathetic.
Oh, they can't be here for freedom. That would make me look bad. They must be here for the free lunch.
They're just hungry. It's a defense mechanism against a reality they cannot grasp.
Wow.
They reduce a grand moral gesture to a bowl of watery soup because that is the only language they speak. It's the language of consumption, the language of the belly, not the language of the soul.
This sets up a pretty stark contrast then. Section 5, the clash of dignity versus anxiety. We have these two sides facing off across the digital divide.
Let's really paint the picture in your mind, based on Abedini's analysis. On side A, you have the athletes.
The men in the photo.
They are standing there with what he calls their symbolic capital. They have the memories of national pride. They have decades of social credit built up. But here is the key. In that moment, they have no actual political power.
Right. They're not a government. They don't have an army.
They have no weapons. They have no money to give anyone. They have absolutely no guarantee that their side will ever win.
They are vulnerable. They are, at the end of the day, old men in coats.
They are completely vulnerable. They're spending their reputation, burning their own social capital to stand up for the people. They're standing utterly exposed.
Okay, that's side A. And side B?
Side B, the attackers. What are their tools? Their only tools are insults, mocking emojis, and humiliation. And Abedini focuses on one tool in particular, the laughter. You see a lot of LOLs and laughing emojis in these attacks. Haha, look at the old men.
Yeah, look at these old losers. It feels like the school bully laughing in the hallway.
It does.
Yeah.
But Abedini says, stop. Look closer at that laughter. That is not the laughter of power.
It's not.
No. He argues that it is the laughter of anxiety.
That's a twist. Usually we think the bully is laughing because they feel strong and confident.
The bully laughs because they are terrified. According to this analysis, what is the source of their anxiety? It stems from seeing people who, despite age, despite wounds, despite living in exile for decades, and despite the heavy personal costs, are still standing.
The fact that they haven't given up, that they haven't been broken, proves that their spirit is intact.
And that is absolutely terrifying to an authoritarian mindset. The resilience of these athletes is living proof that dignity cannot be destroyed by humiliation.
You can insult them, but you can't actually touch their core dignity.
You can mock their teeth, you can mock their wrinkles, you can make up childish stories about soup, but you cannot mock away their history. You cannot erase their moral stance. And for someone whose only weapon is humiliation, realizing that your weapon doesn't work,
Yeah.
that causes panic.
It's like firing a gun and the bullet just bounces off. That would be a terrifying moment.
Exactly. And that panic, that terror, comes out as that nervous, hysterical, mocking laughter. It's the laughter of someone who realizes they are losing the moral argument, so they just start making noise to drown out the silence.
So where does this all leave us? Section 6, the broader political implication. What does this one deep dive into one photo tell us about the future of Iran? We've looked at the photo, the insults, the psychology. What's the bottom line here, according to Abedini?
The bottom line is what he calls self-revelation. He argues that these attacks say almost nothing of substance about the athletes themselves. The athletes are who they are, we know their records, we know their history of sacrifice. But the insults reveal everything about the true face of this monarchist faction.
It's an unintentional confession. It exposes that they aren't looking for democracy. They're looking for a return to a system where they can be the ones doing the humiliating.
That's the danger he identifies. And this, for Abedini, is the core problem of Iranian politics, and maybe politics everywhere. He argues that the central issue in Iran is not just about changing the face of power. It's not about taking down a turban and putting on a crown.
It's not just swapping one boss for another.
No. The real, deep cultural work is about moving beyond the logic of humiliation, elimination, and dehumanization altogether.
A completely different way of doing politics.
A different operating system. As long as the political culture allows for this idea that my opponent is not a person with a different view, but is subhuman, a weed in the garden that must be eliminated, then tyranny will just change its clothes. It will always return, just in a new uniform.
So the ultimate warning from his analysis is, if you don't actively critique and reject this mindset, this ageist, body-shaming, eliminationist way of thinking, you are just paving the way for the next Savak. You're building your own future prison.
Precisely. True freedom, according to this analysis, isn't just a political change on paper. It's a profound cultural shift. It's a shift where we learn to respect the fundamental dignity of the other, even when we passionately disagree with them, where we argue with ideas, not with insults about watery soup.
It's about building a society where human beings are treated as human beings, regardless of their age, their physical condition, or their politics.
And that is a much, much harder revolution to fight. It's far easier to overthrow a government than it is to overthrow a mindset that has been entrenched for generations.
Man, that is a lot to take in from one single photograph.
It is. But that's the power of symbols, isn't it? They act as catalysts. They bring the subconscious to the surface. They force us to look at what we really believe, whether we like what we see or not.
So, to wrap this all up, we started with a photo in Berlin, former champions, national heroes, holding photos of martyrs.
A quiet act of dignity.
We then saw a nasty, vicious backlash from accounts supporting the Pahlavi monarchy.
A backlash that avoided any political substance.
And through the lens of psychologist Iraj Abedini, we came to see that this backlash wasn't just trolling, it was actually a symptom of a fascist transactional mindset that is terrified of genuine moral courage.
And the ultimate takeaway is that the fight for freedom is also a fight for basic human decency. It's a fight to finally break the cycle of humiliation that has plagued Iranian politics for so long.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. The next time you see a political pylon happening online, and it doesn't matter if it's about Iran or your own local politics, and you see that wave of mockery, the laughing emojis, the attacks on someone's appearance, their age, their body.
Stop for a second and ask yourself what you're really seeing.
Are you witnessing wit? Are you witnessing the confidence of a strong argument?
Or are you witnessing the raw anxiety of a worldview that simply cannot handle the existence of human dignity?
That's the question. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.
Take care.